As deflating of a home loss this was for the Falcons, coming in on a 3-game winning streak, playing a Seahawks team on a 3-game losing streak, and then getting curb stomped and losing by 20, there is some good news if you want to be a half glass full type of person coming out of this. And then there's some not so good news on top of just losing a game. But let's start with the good news here. And the good news is the Falcons in week 7 against Seattle generated pressure on Geno Smith 51.5% of his dropbacks, which was a season high for the Falcons. And what is by far the biggest Achilles heel of this team, the pass rusher position, which they are dead last in creating pressure against opposing quarterbacks and sacking opposing quarterbacks. They at least showed a little bit more fight in week 7. Arnold Ebiketie had a much larger role filling in for Lorenzo Carter, and all these numbers coming from Pro Football Focus. He led the way with 5 pressures, followed by Caden Ellis, James Smith-Williams chiming in for 2, one of which would get converted into the team's lone sack of the day. There are 6 sacks in 7 games. So maybe if you want to be a half-glass full type of person, it's starting to click a little bit, generating pressure on more than half of Geno Smith's dropbacks. The issue is Geno Smith was pretty good at handling that pressure. I mean, he had a great touchdown pass over the middle to DK Metcalf. So Geno was pretty good off script and just rolling with the punches, and that was not ideal for Atlanta because for all the pressures they generated, they did not do a good enough job of converting those pressures into sacks, which, listen, I like generating pressures. I think that is a very underrated stat. But at the end of the day, if you generate all these pressures and you never quite get home, yeah, on one hand, a quarterback throwing the ball out of bounds and wasting it down is a pretty good outcome. But at some point, you would like to put them way behind the sticks and force them to punt or force them to make a bad decision. So I would still like to see the Falcons go out and make a trade for a pass rusher. I think we gave Atlanta 2 weeks to figure this shit out, and they still can never get more than like 1 sack a game. So, with that being said, I would like to see the Falcons add a pass rusher. Kevin Knight, who does a great job of covering the team, pointed out a really interesting thought here, and that is the Falcons converting Zach Harrison, a 3rd-round pick last year, from defensive end to defensive tackle, and then drafting 3 defensive tackles is not making a whole lot of sense right now. They loaded up at a position in which they already had a couple of veterans. Then they brought back some veterans, Contavious Street, Eddie Goldman. So they really solidified themselves on the interior side of things, but completely forgot about the whole exterior and, edge rushers and getting after the quarterback from the outside. So, unfortunately, they have watered down the interior defensive line, and now there is just nothing growing on the outside. So who could they trade for? Here are 4 realistic trade candidates. I'm not going to include Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. As I said on a previous video, I think those are major long shots. But Zadarius Smith from the Browns, that's a 1-6 Cleveland team that is going nowhere this year. He is definitely going to be sought after at the trade deadline. Azeez Ojulari, also on a losing team, and not really in a big role on that team because they have Kayvon Thibodeau and they have Brian Burns above him on the depth chart. Emmanuel Ogbah on a Dolphins team that also really isn't going anywhere, especially after their home loss to the Indianapolis Colts. And maybe another Falcons-Patriots trade with Josh Uche because that's a New England team that is definitely not going anywhere. So those are 4 trade candidates. My preference of those 4, I would probably go with Zadarius Smith. I think he is the best of the 4. He's also going to be very cheap. His base salary is only $1.2 million. So whenever we're talking about trading for a player, you don't look at their cap hit. You look at their base salary. And however much money is left on that base salary that has not been paid out already, that is what a new team would be taking on. So we're looking at the Falcons needing about $700,000 in cap space. They can definitely swing that. So the pinned comment on today's video, should Atlanta trade for an edge rusher? I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Yes, 100% yes. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no down in the comment section. Now, next up on the show, the bad news part. And this news is somewhat concerning, but it can be corrected. So that's the at least positive spin to it. But first, a quick shout out to our sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 10 million active members. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup is not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. So here are my selections for the doubleheader we have for Monday Night Football. I like the more for Derrick Henry just to get 1 touchdown. Also like the more for Chris Godwin to get 1 touchdown. And then the more for Baker Mayfield at 12.5 rushing yards because life's too short to take the less. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, run your game. AJ Terrell has been underwhelming this season. I think we can all agree that he has not looked like the multi-million-dollar man the Falcons paid him, a top 5 highest paid cornerback in football, and a record-setting contract at the cornerback position in terms of guaranteed money. 33 tackles, 1 pick, 3 pass breakups. He is on pace to give up the most yards in a season since his rookie year, already giving up 2 touchdowns. He only gave up, I think, 4 all of last season. And Pro Football Focus views him as the most mid-corner. I mean, nearly right at the 50% marker. But I was looking over the film while rewatching this game at NFL Pro, which is honestly a complete 180 of a product compared to last year. And it had a very interesting stat that I think you guys will enjoy reading. Here it is. AJ Terrell has played zone coverage on a career-high 77.8% of his coverage snaps this season, his first season above 70%. Terrell also has lined up in off coverage at his highest rate of his career this season, 74.1%, almost 10 percentage points higher than any other season. No one likes the I told you so guy, and I get a lot of stuff wrong, but I kind of told you so here. That when the Falcons were looking at maybe giving Terrell an extension, I was on board with the idea, but I also proposed, why don't we wait till middle of the season? Because he is going to be making a major adjustment going from the defense he has been operating in for the last 4 seasons compared to what Raheem Morris likes to do down in LA, which is heavy zone defense. And what did I say? Don't ask Terrell to sit in zones. That is not his strong suit. And the Falcons, halfway through the season, continue to trot AJ Terrell out to be a zone corner, which is not what he does best. I mean, look at this graph right here. This is the Rams in 2023. The yellow bars are the league average. The blue bars are the Rams. So the Rams are well above the league average in cover 3, cover 4, cover 5, heavy zone defenses. They are below league average in cover 1, cover 2, sometimes more of your man-to-man approach. Meanwhile, look at the Falcons, okay? Small bars, black one here, is the league average. The Atlanta Falcons, way below league average in cover 3 and cover 4. They are predominantly a man-to-man defense. So you had a man-to-man corner with 1 year left on his contract, and you gave him a huge contract and then just expected him to completely adjust his playing style and fit in this new scheme. Maybe throughout the course of the rest of the season, he starts to respond better to this difference in scheme, and it just takes him a little bit longer than they would have hoped for. But yeah, overall, not a very good scheme fit. I mean, I'm not an X's and O's expert by any stretch. And I'm not claiming to be smarter than the guys making the decisions in Flowery Branch when it comes to football and personnel. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to go, you've got a square you're trying to jam into a triangle. Might not be a very good fit. You've got a defender who's been a man-to-man defender for much of his career, and a good one, and you are bringing in a coach who likes to run zone defense, and you just gave your corner a huge fat contract, before he steps on the field and plays a single snap in this new version of the Atlanta Falcons defense. Don't you see how that might be a problem? Now, again, hopefully this just corrects itself with more reps, more experience playing a different style of defense. These guys are professionals. I don't think A.J. Terrell is incapable of playing in a zone defense, but I don't think it's his preference, and I don't think it is his best skill set. So, not a good scheme fit overall. Hopefully he improves, or the Falcons just adjust their defense to their personnel more, like not having Matthew Judon drop in coverage. But grade the Falcons defense for me. I've seen a lot of people be in support of Atlanta's defense for the way they have stepped up in the second half of games to either keep their offense in it or give their offense a chance at a comeback, like the Bucs game and like the Saints game. For me, I just can't get past 5 straight games now of Atlanta's defense giving up at least 10 points in the first half. I mean, just think about it. Going into the halftime locker room, if the Falcons offense has not scored 2 touchdowns and is not on pace for 28 points, you're pretty much screwed because this defense is not going to give you much of a chance. It's a lot of pressure on this offense. I would give the Atlanta defense a C, and that's probably being generous. Before we get on out of here, some quick shout-outs to the Dirty Birds Club. Jose Santana, Ken Ballard, Trey1222, Jason Landino, Reese Atkins, Archangel, Angry Liquid, Jeebus H. Christ, Dictator JC, JT, Jordan C. Johnza, Ronan Tyrell, Lord Buddy Bear. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. If you want to get added, $100 super chat during our next watch party, and we'll add you to the club. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Sorry about the hoarse voice. I think it's still just a little bit of cigar smoke in the back after Tennessee beat Alabama. But make sure to subscribe and like the video if you've not already, and go Vols.